We're excited to have John Russell with us today to discuss employment law. John R. Russell is an attorney with his own business, John R. Russell Limited, located in Homewood, Illinois. The areas of law he emphasizes are real estate, estate planning, and probate, corporations with an emphasis on nonprofit organizations, and helping business owners manage issues related to their employees. He's licensed in Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, and has over 26 years of experience. He's also an avid volunteer in the community, serving on the boards of churches, schools, and other not-for-profit organizations, including the South Holland Business Association and the District 205 Academic Enrichment Foundation. He is very active in teaching, music, and theater ministries at his church, Spirit of God Fellowship in South Holland. He lives in South Holland with his wife, Susan, and whichever of his 4 adult children who happen to be in town on any given day. He also volunteers for the Village of South Holland as well, where he serves as the chairman of the Planning and Development Commission for 21 years and the president of the South Holland Public Library Board of Trustees for 15 years. Thank you, John, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So part of your practice is helping business owners manage employment issues. So what do you see as the biggest problem that business owners face when it comes to dealing with those employees?
Well, I think one of the most fundamental issues small business owners have in dealing with their employees is not understanding, not wrapping their minds around the employment at will doctrine. And that is a common law principle where an employer can terminate an employee at any time for any reason or for no reason without warning. And the reason why this becomes an issue is the employer doesn't make it clear to the employee, and the employee has the impression that there's some sort of a promise or a contractual arrangement for ongoing employment with the employer. And this happens for a whole bunch of different reasons. Sometimes the employer will call the initial time period of that the employee comes to work a probationary period. Probation is a buzzword for contracts, so you really need to call it an orientation period. Sometimes an employer will give the impression that they will only terminate an employee for cause. They'll say something like, oh, we're one big happy family here, we treat our employees like family. You don't have to worry because the only reason you'll ever lose your job here is if you do something really stupid or you really fall far short of our expectations. So then the employee thinks that the only reason they'll ever be fired is if they screw up. So if you have to fire them for some other reason, like you don't have enough money to pay them anymore, well then they can bring a claim against you because you promised that the only reason you would ever fire them is because they do a poor job. And then there's issues of giving the impression that you can be employed for a certain period of time. An example of that would be like you hire somebody and you say, we're going to put you at the reception desk for the first 6 months so that you can learn all about the business. We'll see if you fit in. After 3 weeks, you realize this person's not going to work. You let them go. They bring a claim against you for promising that they could work for 6 months. And so the way you avoid all this is you make it clear from the get-go that the employment at will doctrine is the rule in your workplace. And you do that by setting it up right from the start. You put it in writing. It's either in an employee handbook that the employee acknowledges or just one page that says, this is the rule. You're an employee at will, and there is absolutely no expectation of a contractual relationship between us.
Okay, all right. So are there any exceptions to the doctrine?
Oh, absolutely. It wouldn't be the American judicial system if there weren't exceptions. There are 3 categories of exceptions. The first one, it's the public policy exceptions. Examples of this are things like you can't fire somebody because they refuse to do something illegal. You can't fire somebody because they make a claim for workers' compensation after they've been injured on the job. You can't fire somebody because they have to go on jury duty. These are things that judges have determined are just so unfair we won't put up with it. The second category are the ones that everybody's familiar with, the constitutional protections. You can't make an employment-based decision because of someone's race, because of their religion, because of their ethnicity, because of their gender, etc. And then the third category are special new categories that have been created by the legislature. They pass laws, and sometimes you have to have a certain number of employees for these laws to apply to you, but examples are you can't fire somebody because they're over the age of 40,
Okay.
or you can't fire somebody because they're disabled, but they could perform the job if you would just offer them a reasonable accommodation. Those are the exceptions.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you really can't fire someone for any particular reason. But don't the exceptions basically take all of the teeth out of the doctrine?
Well, it may seem that way, but an employer, if they take the right approach, employment at will can still be the rule. There's a balance between the at-will doctrine and all the exceptions we just talked about.
Okay.
So if an employer terminates someone for an at-will reason that is legitimate, it's not one of the exceptions,
Okay.
and they're wrong, they have the facts screwed up, it's still defensible, because the key is you have to get at the motivation of the employer.
Okay.
It's a subjective test.
Okay.
Now, most discrimination cases are proved through circumstantial evidence. And it's usually because I've never had a client who's come in and admitted to me, well, the reason why I terminated this person was because of their race, because of their
Right.
religion.
Right.
That just doesn't happen. And some of this circumstantial evidence can appear to be something the employee's cooked up or something that's very tenuous. Well, how do you avoid that? You know? Well, the number one reason for employment litigation in America today is not a particular kind of discrimination. It's not a particular category of employees. In my opinion, it is the concept that managers don't manage.
Okay.
Employers are not taking a hands-on approach and making sure their employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I encourage my clients to adopt policies and procedures that will help avoid all this before it occurs in the first place. And the primary way that you do that is through good employment record keeping. If an employee keeps meticulous, accurate, contemporaneous employment records, they give their employees regular performance reviews, and when there is a problem, they attack it directly, right when it happens, and they either encourage the employee to overcome the problem, or they will discipline the employee when they refuse to overcome the problem.
Okay.
Then you've created a whole file full of clear and convincing evidence that will refute the circumstantial evidence that the employee may raise. And of course, employers have to just avoid making stupid mistakes. Examples are things like if an employer changes the reason why they've terminated somebody after the fact, well, that casts aspersions on the real reason for the termination. If they terminate somebody for no reason whatsoever, and they refuse to give a reason, even though that's part of the employment at will doctrine, that just implies that you've done it for the wrong reason. Then there's the issue of timing, a big mistake that a lot of my clients make. They have a problem employee, they put up with the problems for weeks, for months, for years. They got this passive-aggressive thing going. They don't do anything about it until one day, the last straw, they get angry, they fire the employee. If they haven't kept those records, well then, that employee has a really good shot of going into court and saying, I never knew I was a bad employee, and must have been the real reason was some, discriminatory reason. And then there's the issue of the atmosphere of the workplace. You can't make offhanded remarks, bad jokes, inappropriate comments.
Right.
We can't offend our employees within the status that they exist in. So professionalism is really the key. So if you take all this, you wrap it all up, if an employer establishes from the beginning in writing that the at-will doctrine is the rule, and then you take the time to keep those employment records so that you have the clear and convincing evidence to refute some circumstantial claim of discrimination, well then, the at-will doctrine's a reality in your workplace, and that employer can run their business the way they want to.
Great. Well, thank you, John, for this really great information. And to learn more about John and his law practice, go to www.jrusslaw.com.